What's up out there? So I did a video here a few months ago talking about all the different mods that I run in 2024. I think it was after Into the Abyss came out or somewhere thereabouts. There was some mod changes, some things changed. And I updated my modding video, and I think I glossed over a bunch of mods. And in that video, I said that I would come back and do longer videos for certain mods. This is the start of that. We're going to do a few of these. I'm not going to go through every mod that I run in its own video, but I think there are some that I would like to spend a little bit of time on and not make the video an hour long trying to cover all the different mods at once. So in this video, we're going to talk about semi-auto rune crafting. And the very first thing you need to understand about the package or suite of semi-mods is that they start with semi-core. This one needs to be elevated to the top of the mod list. And the reason for that is it holds code that all the other ones use. So it needs to load first, and to make it load first, you just load it to the top. The rest of these, I don't think it matters in the order. I put them in a particular order because I want to start running through these. So I just kind of put them in an order. We'll probably get into auto farming next and maybe auto slayer and things like that. So anyway, we're going to talk about auto rune crafting. The first thing you need to know is you need to make sure you have semi-core installed at the very top. So make sure it's leveled up. If it's lower in the list, you'll run into issues. The mods won't work because this needs to load first. So make sure that's up there. Semi-auto rune crafting is a mod. You can read the descriptions of it in here if you want. They have a specific goal in mind on how this runs. So this mod will give you this, when you install it, it will give you this bar over here that when you expand gives you a giant list of mods or a giant list of runes. So you would come in and fill numbers into this. So if we put in, let's just put zeros in everything for now. I don't want it doing anything at the moment. So we're going to put zeros in all this. And if it's enabled, it's not going to run anything. So what is semi-auto rune crafting? This is basically an automated rune crafting utility or mod, whatever you want to call it, that when you put a number in here into the max cast and a number down here, it is going to create a quantity of runes for you. When it gets bored and if it runs out of runes, if it runs out of, once it's satisfied all the orders that are in this list, it will start mining. It'll just go auto mine. There's a help button that kind of explains some things. They have a particular vision for how this mod works, and I don't necessarily use it the way they envision it. So the basics for the mod, there are different options. You can do linear, you can do lowest cast, or you can do endless. I don't really care for endless because it just never stops. I want to set it to particular thresholds. I don't like linear because what linear does is if you say I want 100 mine runes, it will do 100 mine runes and then switch over to air. I kind of like it to layer things out, which is what lowest cast does. By the tooltip, it crafts a rune with the lowest amount, swapping if needed until max cast. So basically, think of a brick wall. You're not just going to start and put random bricks on the wall. You're actually going to build a base across each one before you go to the next one. So this is what it does. It will say, if you want 1,000 runes for each one of these, it will do 100 mine runes, then 100 air, 100 water, 100 earth. And then once it gets through all of these, it'll come back and do the next 100. So now you'll have 200, 200, 200, 200, 200, 200, and then it comes back. Something like that. However it does it, whatever its internal logic is, it will basically stripe across the list until it gets all the way to the top, and then it quits. So that's the one I prefer because I typically want all the runes on the list. You could certainly set it to linear if you want. Linear, you could just, in my thinking with linear, you could just disable this and select the rune and tell it to go. That's what linear is. I know once it meets the requirements that you've set, like if you want 1,000,000 runes, if you don't want it to keep going past 1,000,000, you can let auto rune crafting take over. But if it comes up with 1,000,005, 1.5 million or something like that, I don't care because I'm going to go through those runes. So in my opinion, there's really no reason to take linear because you could just do linear, turn semi-auto rune crafting off and just tell it to go linear on its own. Like you don't have to use a mod for that. Endless, to me, I don't really like endless all that much because I could just do that myself. What I like is lowest cast. because it does layer these across, and that's how I prefer to use it. So how is this intended to work as far as the max cast and the runes and all that stuff? The way they describe this, if you go look in here, is it is I think it's in the mod itself. When you go look at the mod description, it's basically a ratio. So you're going to put a number in here, and the number down here is the two numbers together tell you how much you're going to get. So what they intend for you to do is to come over to your magic spell book, and you would look at a spell like Wind Strike uses 2 air runes and 1 mind rune. So you would then come down to Runecrafting. You would say, I need 2 air runes and 1 mind rune. And then I want to cast that 250 times. So when I click out of this, it's going to then process, like if I turn this on, it's going to process this to where they create enough runes to cast that 250 times. That's the way it's intended for. Now, I don't particularly like that myself. What spell am I going to use? I don't know. Am I going to switch out spells frequently? Probably. So for me to try to figure out and micromanage which spells and how much of which and all that stuff, I don't like that idea. I don't think that way. That's not the way I get things. Because if I switch from Wind Strike to Water Strike, now all of a sudden that ratio is completely different. Yes, this thing will, it's still, for example, we're going to switch from Wind Strike to Water Strike. Now it needs 1, 1, and 1. So if I've created a bunch of air runes and mind runes, it will take those into account, and it will just skip over that and start creating water runes. But then I switch to Earth. Now I have to worry about the Earth runes. Well, it's already created air and mind, so it's going to ignore those and go to Earth. Yeah, it kind of keeps it up, but I don't think that way. I don't think in number of spells that I'm going to cast. What I think is a pile of runes that I want to use. So it's a little bit micromanagey for me. And when you start looking at like curses, these also use mind runes, but they start using a lot of body runes. Auroras can use air runes, water, earth, fire, stuff like that. And they use a lot of light runes. So in my mind, what I want to do is have a quantity of runes, and I like the idea of the ratio, but not the way they intended. I don't want to go in here and look at the spell book and total out, okay, I'm going to cast fire, we're going to cast Fire Surge. So I need 7 of these, 1 of these, 10 of these. I'm also going to use, say, the Decay Curse. So now I need 2, what are these? Havoc, and then 2 of these, 1 of these, 3 of these. Now I'm going to go over here. We're going to do Surge 2, and now I need to use 4 of these and 2 of these. Now I got to total this column up and this column. I don't like that. That's just miserable to me. It's not the way I want to deal with this. So the way I use this tool is based on what I will call rune weight. So let's see here. I'm going to put a 0 there, a 0 there, and a 0 there. What I do is for max cast, I put in the total number of runes that I want to see. Or I don't know what the best way to say this, the multiple of the total runes that I want to see. So let's say I'm just starting out rune crafting. I may only want 25,000 runes. Okay. I'm just starting with, I just started the game. I don't have enough rune essence. I'm not going to take the time to do all that. I just want to get magic up and running. So I want 25,000 runes. This is going to be a multiplier that I use with all my runes. The multiplier gets applied down here. They say ratio, which makes sense to me. Like in the description, it says this is a ratio. So think of it like this. I want 25,000 runes as my base number. So if I put the number 1 here, I'm going to get 25,000 runes. If I put the number 2 here, I'm going to get 50,000. So let's put this into practice. Practice is a good word for it. Air runes are in nearly every single spell. So I'm going to want them to be the most that I ever do. So I probably want to have something like 5 or maybe 10. So this is going to create 25,000 runes 10 times. You can do all the math and multiply it out, whatever you want. I usually do even numbers, so like 25,000. I'm not going to do 486. I'm not going to do 5,329. I'm going to do something easy, like 25,000, 50,000, 100,000, 250,000, a million. So I do easy numbers so that I can just look at this and say, okay, this is how much I want. Now, the ratios that I use are not necessarily the ratio from this number to this number. It's the relation between this number and this number. Here's an example. You're going to have air runes in pretty much every magic spell you use. There are some exceptions like archaic and ancient magics and stuff like that. Some of those deviate a little bit. Maybe they'll use water or fire or something like that. But for the most part, most of your magic is going to use air runes. You're going to need a lot of air runes. So I put this up at 10. Mind runes you're going to use quite a bit, so I might put that at like a 2. Water runes, I'll probably put it at 2. Earth and fire, I'll probably also put at 2s. You're going to need a lot of these when you start casting the various elemental spells, and these numbers may go up or down as you go on. Maybe you find yourself running out of air runes, so you need 15. Maybe you're running out of water runes because you're using that a lot, so you bump that up to 5. Then you start using fire runes. Now you need this one at 5. These will change as time goes on, but I start off with something like this because I know I'm going to use a lot of elemental runes. I'm going to need a lot of air runes because I'm going to use those a lot. Mind runes are pretty common. Light runes I'll probably do 2 because they're just as common as because of the auroras. Same thing with body runes. I'm probably going to use those a lot. Chaos runes, I'll probably only care about 1, havoc 1, death 1, blood runes probably 1, spirit. There's a staff or something you can use with a lot of spirit runes. I may bump this up to 2 or 3. Ancient runes, I'm probably going to want 5 because by the time I can create those, I'm going to start using ancient magic and I'm going to need those a lot. Maybe 3 to start off with. Balancing this out, I don't want it to run forever. So that's why I start with the max cast a little bit lower because I want it to finish in a day or so. I don't want it to just go forever or take a week to get done. So I put reasonable numbers, then I'll go into combat, see how that pans out, and then adjust this stuff as it goes forward. Now you'll notice that I've skipped nature runes. Nature runes are used in pretty much all alt magic. So nearly every piece of alt magic has a nature rune in it. So if you're going to go heavy on alt magic to leveling up your magic skill that way, or do something in alt magic that produces money or items or whatever, you're going to want a lot of nature runes. So this one, I may say 3, 4, 5, something like that. Depends on the case. You'll notice that I've weighed some of the things that I'm going to use a lot more. The anticipated use is going to be a lot higher. So air runes are the highest. Elemental runes are probably going to be the second highest. Stuff with curses and auras are going to be the third highest. And then alt magic's going to be in here. Ancient runes will be kind of up there a little bit. And then the rest are all set at ones because I don't really think I'm going to use a lot of those. So when you turn this thing on, it will just start creating runes. And once it's satisfied that number of runes, let's give this something a little bit more meaningful. We'll say 500. Once it's created 500 of each rune, it will move on to the next one. So we're still doing mind runes right now. And you'll see this thing's counting up. It's going to say, well, I want 1,000. So it's going to create 1,000 of these before it moves on to the next one. And I'm kind of not in the threshold to where it will just bricklay itself across. Like you'd need to be up 250,000 or something like that. What it does is it gets far enough apart from the next one, and then it goes to the next one, catches that one up, and then catches the next one up, and then the next one. And once they're all caught up, it moves over. But I'm at such a low threshold that it's just going to keep going. Now, we're going to need a lot of air runes, so this is going to take a minute. I do not know that I am totally optimized on my gear on here, or all the boosts and everything. Like, I haven't factored in all the boosts. I'm just doing this as a demonstration. Like there's so many optimizations you can put on. This will not adjust your gear. And there is a mode that if it runs out of runes, or I'm sorry, if it runs out of essence, pure essence, or abyssal essence, it will go mine. Now, I do not like letting this thing do an auto mine. I'm just not a fan of that. Let's put this up to 3 so it doesn't run forever. I don't like letting this thing go to auto mining because when you let this do its mining thing, it takes the gear you've got on and goes and mines. So if I see that I'm running short, especially like when I'm going to go to bed for the night, and let it sit for 5, 6, 8 hours or whatever, or if I'm going to be away for a while, I make sure that I have enough runes that it's going to go for that length of time. If it's not going to have that, I will go set up, even if I've got, say, 50,000 rune essence. If it looks like it's going to stop, and we've now got the ETA mod to where you can just look at this and see, okay, it's going to last for 8 hours. I'm good for this rune. If I know it's going to cut short and it's only going to last an hour or something like that, I will set up a mining gear setup and then just go and mine. And they may have changed something. I'm pretty sure that when you used to switch over to, say, I want to go create this, it would actually, you would go create this. Oh, I can't create that because I don't have enough of the runes. If I go create this, it would just enable auto rune crafting and start running again. And then it would immediately switch back. So if I wanted to level up and create a bunch of gear, it would just toggle the thing back over. It would create like one item here and then kick back over. I think they've changed that to where it just disables auto mode, because as soon as I click this, it turns that off. That's not the way it used to be. And they must have changed that, because it's definitely not operating the same way. Because when you did enable it, it would just start going, you know, if it would stay enabled, and even though you were trying to level up and create gear that had more XP, it would just go right back to auto rune crafting. So it looks like they've changed that, and that's a good change. But you can see we're starting to get quantities into each of these, and we're getting casts possible. Actually, it looks like it's cycling between there, because I'm only asking for 500. Why is it doing chaos runes? That's odd. It shouldn't have kept going on chaos runes. So there may be some slop in there for some reason. I don't know why it went with 852. It should be cycling between them. But this also works offline. So when you come back from being from logging out, it will have cycled through a whole bunch of different runes, which is great, because you can let this thing run overnight and it'll come back. You'll come back to a bunch of runes instead of one particular rune. That's why I don't really like running linear and stuff like that. I like this lowest cast, because I can get all the runes and then come back the next day and start doing combat. So I think that is about as much as there is to talk about with this auto rune crafting mode, or auto rune crafting mod. This thing is great. I love it. As somebody that played for a few years before we got modding support, having to go through and select, like, you had to choose the rune you wanted to craft overnight and stuff like that. Being able to tell this thing a quantity of runes and let it run and just get whatever you want the next day, and there's a whole pile of runes to start off with, is great. Because now you don't have to worry about, do I want to let it sit on this one overnight? No, it just runs all of them. This also works with the Throne of the Herald expansion. I have not spent much time with the Abyssal side, but it looks like it works there. In my opinion, I would blank these out so that it doesn't just randomly go to the other realm. I don't know if this does that. Like, if it needs to, if it satisfies all the requirements for the Abyssal side, does it go back to the regular side and start working over there? I'm not sure. When I did use it, I zeroed all these out. It takes a little bit of time to do, but I zeroed all these out and then just set the Abyssal side and let it run on that. But that's it. I think that's the amount of knowledge that I have about this mod. That's how I use it. I set the total number that I want here, or a multiply. I set the total number, or what's the best way to say that? Not a total number, but I use a base number here under max cast, and then I set a multiplier down here, whether that is 1, saying that I just want 500, or 3, that I want 1500. Then I put a multiplier down here, base number here, multiplier down here, and let it rip. And make sure that I have enough rune essence, or pure essence, or abyssal essence, so that it has enough to run on. So anyway, that is all I have for this video. That will do it for this one. We will catch you on the next one. Take care.